feedback from you. As Phil mentioned, my name is Siavash Kanani. I run this agency in Budapest, and we work with BigQuery and GA and web analytics and Looker Studio and offline data and all kind of data, really. But today it's about UA, backing up UA, saving UA, and you should be here probably because you want to do something with your UA data. So let's talk about that, shall we? Today, I want to talk about something that we would call in Siavak Continuous Analytics Bridge, or CAB in short, which helps us go from UA, Universal Analytics Day 0, to GA4 real-time. But first of all, I've got a few questions for you. So just take 30 seconds, open a new tab, go to slido.com, enter this number, and you can answer this question. Or take out your phone or a tablet or something, scan this QR code. And again, you will be presented with a screen that you can answer this question, and your answer will appear on the screen. And I can see basically what kind of audience I'm talking to, right? Because we're talking, it's two-way communication. Have you already backed up your UA data? As soon as I see some answers coming in, I will begin talking about actually backing up UA data. Yes. Okay. Why are you here? But no, it's fun. It's fun. You kind of stay. I still have something for you that are saying, yes, you've already backed up your UA data, attending an event about backing up UA data, which means that you care about UA data a lot. And some people, which should be one of 33%, not yet, but planning to. How many people do you have? The next question, just a few people. Can you tell me, are you based in Europe and UK, or are you from rest of the world? So I'll have to explain about the two, the few slides that I'm going to present next. Okay, so we got some people, actually one from Europe and one from rest of the world, and others have not decided to respond. Okay, so let me move on without asking you to respond to more questions. First of all, I don't want to talk about UA or Universal Analytics Web Data. I want to talk about something else. The Tethered bottle cap, which are everywhere in Europe and UK. These are these kind of bottle caps. You know, the bottle caps you open and they detach from the bottle. Right now in Europe, in UK, they do not detach because of some regulations that it's for improving recycling rates, right? They want the bottle cap to attach to the bottle, so the recycling rates go up. So it's for a good reason, and it has a reason, the design of it and the laws for having all companies use it, right? But people are frustrated with that. They complain about it on social media. They say that the change is frustrating and that it makes the bottles difficult to use, difficult to put the bottle cap back on. And they just want simply the usual bottle caps back, which was working fine and is probably working fine for you in the US and Canada and the rest of the world, just not in Europe and UK, right? This is like this. When you try to use it, this is the usability of the new caps. So there is a reason, but it's hindering the usability. It's difficult to do, right? And some people are commenting that it's the worst thing to happen to humanity, etc., etc. Now, when I'm thinking of that, and I want to think about something else, another product related to our work that is made to solve the problem that people didn't have. It's partly because of new regulations. It's partly because of improving certain functionalities and aspects of the tool. But people are complaining. Yeah, they don't like that. They find the change as frustrating. They find the new product difficult to use. They want the 2022 version of the product back, which was working fine. Any questions? Can at least someone try to name that product, that another product that I was talking about? One of the three people that actually tried to use a slider. I'll wait for 10 seconds and then I'll give you the answer. My answer, at least. Someone is typing. Thank you. Data. Data is not a product, but yeah, it's related to data. Okay, let me give you. Oh, someone else. GA4. Yeah. At least for me and someone else, Google Analytics 4 is something that turned our smooth sailing into a stormy sea. It changed the way we used to work. It's probably the next best thing in 5 years, in 7 years. It has many pros to it. The data model is great. I mean, there are lots of more use cases for it. But it has brought lots of headaches for us and for the businesses and for the clients that we used to work with. Plus, to be honest, lots of business for practitioners like us. Okay, but think about it. The tools change, but the businesses really don't. Most of us, most of our clients, most of my clients, most of your clients, your companies are still tracking and analyzing data, metrics, KPIs in the same way that you used to do prior to GA4, right? The business, the CFO is looking at the report. They want to look at the same report. They want to look at the same data, right? If UA was not sunset, if there was no GA4, I bet we were all tracking the same conversions, the same metrics, the same events, category, event, action. It was at a good place, really. Most companies were mature, more mature in terms of how they went on to implementation and thinking about their UA implementation. It was at a really good and useful position, right? GA4 wasn't something we asked for. We needed to adapt to it. And probably you needed to adapt to it. You are interested in UA and saving it. That's why you are here. There might be cases that some companies completely resort their analytics and implementation and say, okay, yeah, there's a new tool. Let's think about our data in a different way. Let's track something else. Let's track it in a different way. Let's look at the reports and analyze data in different ways. But for most of us, it was a migration process. Yeah, they wanted us, the clients wanted us to migrate from UA to GA4 to help them be able to look at the same report that they were used to look at and analyze, but with GA4 instead of GA, right? And for us, it was to figure out how to do it, how to map the implementation between UA and GA4, how to map the metrics and dimensions and tracking from two systems so we can continue to do report on what was important to us. Now, when I think about this, and when people try to think about this migration project, there were some questions. What happens to what we collected in Universal Analytics? Companies that spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars coming up with proper implementation plan, properly implementing the Universal Analytics. So what happens to that? Backup, right? There are lots of solutions for backup. People want to back up their UA data. Probably that's why you're here. Some of you have already done so. Then it was that, okay, we can't get the same report from the GA4 interface. The interface was lacking, is still lacking, it's getting better, but in many cases, Looker Studio was the answer to those questions. Okay, you cannot get it from GA4, go through the API, go through the connector, report on Looker Studio. Some of types of reporting that were easily possible in Universal, they weren't even possible in Looker Studio connected to GA4. So we had to go to the BigQuery export table, which was kind of available to us from day one or very early in the days of GA4, right? But then some companies forgot to enable the export, and the GA4 export to BigQuery, it's not historically retroactive, so that some other companies, some other solution providers came up with ways to backfill GA4 data into BigQuery via API in a similar schema as much as possible so that they do not lose data. There is no gap between where UA stops and the GA4 export is started, right? Then it became expensive. So people use data form and they try to create summary tables in BigQuery. And then the recent days were changing. Data for the last 72 hours might change. There's delays in processing. Data in the tables was changing. So we needed rolling workflows in BigQuery, always reprocessing and rewriting data for the past 3 to 5 days so that we know our data is accurate, matching with the GA4 interface. And finally, it was running daily. So there was intraday events, intraday table in BigQuery to rescue, so we could get some kind of real-time reporting in BigQuery in Looker Studio, right? When we tried to go through this kind of chaos of transition from UA to GA4 in the last few years, there were problems we needed to face. The data fragmentation, right? Losing historical data, mapping schemas. What are the equivalent metrics from these two platforms? How we can continuously report on a metric, track a metric, analyze a metric from these two platforms, especially for year-to-year kind of comparisons at the beginning of the transition last year. And the delayed report, we didn't have real time. There was processing delays and retention limits, 2 months or 14 months. And after that, we cannot reprocess data. We need to have it somewhere else. Maybe go back to BigQuery export to be able to process our data without sampling, without data retention issues. Okay. So for our clients, we came up and we kind of improved a solution to help them go from day one of UA, whether it was 2012, 2008, 2018, have their data, have a kind of continuous schema from that day, until real time in GA4, until last minute, until yesterday, and have a continuous view of the reporting if they want to do year-over-year analysis, or just look at the last week or today, or maybe last hour when they have campaign launches. Okay, so this was the idea, and this was what we tried to create, to preserve the historical UA data so it's not lost, to backfill the GA4 data in BigQuery for where they forgot to enable the export on time, to match the schemas between the two, to process the BigQuery export to come up with the same schema in a summary tables like that at a scale and cost efficiently, to handle changes to recent data, to add real-time analysis to it, and to offer a unified view from a start to real time. Something like this. Look at it. There is big picture from 2020 coming from Universal Analytics for page views metric. It can be any metric. It can be anything that we can define in the same way and map between two platforms. So page views are going from here to here. Then there is the data gap, which we needed to backfill. The green one is the export from BigQuery. And then the orange one is today from 7 a.m. up to last minute real time. So this is the solution I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to go through some of the things that we need to fix, some of the workaround we need to learn about, some of the challenges that we had, and I'm going to share with you some open source solutions that if you want to do it yourself, you can try to explore those as well. A very simple report will look like this: different metrics, different dimensions, continuous from different platforms from start to finish. Okay, the clients are happy. They have what they wanted. It's not that simple. So for each one of them, it's a customized version. And now they can be sure that they can still look at their data. They can still analyze their data the way they used to. So let's talk about the architecture and components of CAP, Continuous Analytics Bridge Engine. First of all, we needed to extract data from UA and from GA4 where they forgot to enable the export. And for this, we had two solutions, two open source solutions already in Siavak, which we took advantage from, but we needed to build upon that to arrive at this unified view, okay? Let me introduce you to those two open source solutions. There is a short link here. If you want, you can go take a look. They're in GitHub. You can use them, you can fork them, you can interact with them, whatever. The first one is backing up Universal Analytics to BigQuery, more than 5K impressions, 19 forks, and 15 stars. We got on that one. And the second one is backfilling GA4 to BigQuery, which got 8,000 impressions, 16 fork, and 42 stars as people have started using it. So these two links, Siavak.co UA backup and Siavak.co GA4 backup. These are free. These are open source. Feel free to use them. These are the building blocks, the foundations that we use to build upon and create CAP, Continuous Analytics Bridge. We first extract data from these two platforms, from these two APIs. Then we map data together, match, okay, this metric is that metric, sessions is sessions, bounce times is bounce. But some of the metrics, it might be more complicated to decide how to map them between the two platforms and some of the dimensions as well. Then we integrate the two into a singular table that comes from UA to the gap. And then for when we have BigQuery export, because it doesn't have sampling, it can be more accurate. We always prefer the BigQuery export table where it's available to us. So we transform the GA4 BigQuery data in BigQuery using the same way as we extract data from UA and GA4 API. So we continuously try to keep the same schema so that we can consolidate these three sources together, these two attached to each other, and then up to previous day, we have data, the same kind of data, summary tables coming from BigQuery. And finally, we attach real time from this morning from the events intraday tables in two different methods, which I will talk about, and we can connect it for visualization, for analysis in Looker Studio. This is kind of a schema of the assembly line. So it starts with the backfill. This backfill, we use Python in BigQuery to do so, the unified tables. And then we use Google Cloud and several different functionalities of Google Cloud to first process the events tables, the daily tables, and also process the intraday tables the same way and consolidate all of those with Dataform, which is key for ensuring efficiency and cost effectiveness. And we will have the tables, we add the real time, and we connect it to Looker Studio. So These are kind of zoom-in versions of that, which I've already talked about. But then we had some challenges, right? We had challenges with the scopes. We had challenges with definitions of metrics. So if you want to do so, if you want to use those two open source solutions, be sure that you have a clear definition of your metrics and dimensions in mind, and you know which one maps to the other one. Ensuring the data accuracy and completeness. Because we are hitting APIs too many times, we needed kind of error handling to make sure that there is no gap. So this is nothing failing. There's no gap in the data that we're retrieving from the API. And we had to put like error handling and redundancy checks that nothing is missed. Also, the APIs had limits. So there's 100,000 rows, a maximum from each API in one request a page, and then there are limited amount of times. I guess it's 10,000 or 1,000 that you can hit the API each property per day. So depending on the size of the data and the volume of data, well, we had to utilize some techniques to minimize the impact. So to break the data, to work around sampling and work around the limitations of the API, so we can export like years and years of data from properties that were getting millions of views and hits per day, right? The metric mapping, I already talked about. Some metrics were very easy. They were equivalent, like users and sessions. We had them on both ends. But for some other metrics, like goals, like events, like some key events recently, or some custom metrics in UA, we need to figure out, okay, how are we now tracking those custom metrics, those custom dimensions, those goals in GA4, and create a custom mapping between the two so that the data is continuous, right? Then we needed to make sure that the data types are correct and they do not break the system, because sometimes you have an event in UA, it's a string, but it's a number, but then you have it in GA4, it's number and it's a number. So the data seems to be the same, but it's actually in different formats, a numeric one and a string one, or date formats. In the export, we have it in string format. We have to parse it, make it date, so that all the date formats are compatible with each other, and we have a unified view of all dates going forward, right? Preventing the limits, I already talked about that. We tokenize the request. We kind of creating dynamic page size for all the requests that we're making, depending on the sampling and the limitations that we know we will be facing, depending on the volumes of data that we can see. And finally, for some of our clients, we had to do it for multiple, or sometimes 100 accounts at the same time, which they were all high volume, and they kind of shared the same schema, the same setup. Like think of one website created for 50 different languages, right? They're all the same. They're all different accounts. We want to extract them all the same from UA and from GA4 and continue the same. So we kind of created a centralized configurations for those scripts and the rest of the scripts that we built upon them, so that now we can set everything in the configuration, all the views, all the access, and all the schemas to extract. And we can do it for hundreds or thousands of views and properties automatically and at the same time. We don't have to do it manually. That is because we don't have time, right? We have a modular script design, and we needed to do that because accounts were different, the setups were different, the implementations were different. And for each client, we had to do certain kind of customizations. So we made it modular in a way that it kind of conforms to the usage of each client and each system. So we can easily go into and customize the mapping and the things that need to be extracted and mapped between the platforms for each client based on the unique implementation. Okay. We had to create a kind of service account to go work around the open authentication for GA4 API mainly. So a service account sits in BigQuery, which already the email service account has access to both UA and the GA4 property, and it has access to resources in BigQuery and Google Cloud to perform the operation. And when using that service account, we kind of do not need to go through open authentication and renew authentication all the time. That's one of the reasons that we could manage to extract so many accounts at the same time. Partitioning for cost efficiency, it's being done on the extract, and again, as I mentioned, the schemas are customized and customizable for each business, right? Apart from mapping, which I already talked about, we on the GA4 data, we put a preference on unsampled native schema in BigQuery. Even when we can grab data from GA4 API, we use BigQuery table because it's unsampled, because it doesn't have the data retention limits as well, and also because sometimes we can be more accurate. So usually we use the kind of definitions of the metrics from official documentations of Google, how that metrics should be defined. But for something like user count, GA4 API and the user interface, it uses hyperlog for efficiency. But when we have access to the BigQuery export table, we can actually use count distinct, which is more accurate. It doesn't match the interface and API, but when we know what we're doing, we can use a more accurate way of calculating metrics, especially when we're dealing with the export table and the real-time table, okay? When we extract all of those, this is the event tables. We had to create a way for cost efficiency, really, to only detect and replace the tables that were actually changed their data. So with the Log Explorer in Google Cloud, we can know and we can trigger when a new table is created, okay? And we can send the data to PubSub, which then processes the log entry, looks at the table, which one was changed, which kind of data was entered, and only find the table of the date that was modified and reprocess that within workflows to append to our tables that we have at the end. This is important because otherwise we needed to have a rolling workflow that always processes like 3 to 5 days of data just to make sure that nothing slips through, right? If anything changes, we wanted the last 3 days always to be reprocessed, but we didn't want to do so. And here, and with this, we managed to bring it down by about 1/4. So sometimes we only have to process one table and deduplicate and update that one table instead of always doing 3, depending on which one was updated. Also for real time, we had 2 ways of going through the real time. We could have done real time on an hourly basis. So once we are done with the daily tables, we could process the real-time table in the same way using data forms and Cloud Scheduler on an hourly basis, and every half an hour, every 4 hours. But sometimes we really wanted real-time. So depending on the use case and depending on the tolerance of the business for cost, we can either do it hourly every half an hour, or one other solution that we created to recreate the same processing using a view in BigQuery and unified append it to the data that we had up to last day, right? So with the view, when Looker Studio is querying that view, especially if the data source is set to 1 minute data freshness, we are always sure that we are processing all the events intraday table as it is in BigQuery, which is close to real time, and appending it when the report is being refreshed. It is more costly, depending on the use case and how many times people refresh that, but it allows us to go from the daily table to up to the minute, last minute table. Okay. And that's how we basically managed to do this. Okay. And we can do it for others too. And something that most of the clients were really concerned about was efficiency, scalability, and cost. Really, in BigQuery, is it costly to do so? So we had cost in mind, right? The API backfills from Universal to GA4, in terms of Google Cloud cost, they're almost cost-free, right? So they do not have any cost really in Google Cloud. Dataform, which we use for orchestration of the pipeline, and the tools used like the scheduler, the log pops up, they're mostly free. So the initial setup from a Google Cloud Platform cost and billing cost, it was minimal for most of the properties that we did. Incremental updates, because we just detect and trigger based on the tables that actually change, and the ways that we optimize the real-time table, they actually have minimized ongoing processing volume for the business. So for properties for up to 10 million events per month that we are doing that, it's like under $2. So it's not that much and it's really optimized in doing so. In the reports that we have, we already have tracking for expenses. So this is from an actual account, which went up from said in traffic on one day, but it went up to $0.50 really. But we've got real-time dashboard in Looker Studio to monitor the cost of the system, the cab running, and actually figure out and alert if it's becoming costly for any reason and go in, intervene, and try to fix. Okay. Now, I don't really talk about cab versus alternative, but this is it provides a single platform. It's the only thing that we saw in the market that provides a single unified view between UA and GA4 and real time. And it's compared to GA4 interface, third-party solutions, and open source solutions, including the ones that are ours. It's almost the one that gives us real time and flexibility to choose how real time do we want to be. We can use Looker Studio for reporting, which is really fine, and it's not available in many other solutions. And it's really automated and scalable. Like we can run it for 100 views if the setting and kind of schemas are the same, but we just want to extract them all. It's one configuration file. It runs through all of them. It backs up all of them and then goes to GA4 and BigQuery. Okay. Ease of implementation. I mean, it's the easiest. I mean, it's done for you for GA4 interface, learning curve, third-party solutions. Usually they are self-serve, like SaaS solutions. You have to learn how to set them up and set them up for each view. And open source solutions, you need to figure out how to get them to work. But now, the most important thing that I always think about is that, okay, UA is going away. This is about UA backup. This is probably one of the last events about UA backup and the last talk in the last event about UA backup that we will have. And once UA is away, once it's gone, now should the cap go to, or we have other solutions, use cases for it? The way I think about it is that it's a foundation that we now had to create because of the request from the clients. But now we can use it as a foundation to build upon, right? It is processing data from GA4. So it can bring cross-platform data. It can bring data also from Search Console. It can bring data from Google Ads. It can bring data from different platforms and process them in the same way on a daily and, if available, real-time basis as it is doing with GA4. So it's able to expand it, like widen it that way. And also, it's possible to expand it from just a data engineering piece that provides data in a very proper format for the purpose of reporting to analysis. So can we use this GA4 data going forward, add it and merge with other platforms' data to maybe run ML, to run different kind of analysis, to activate different other platforms like reverse ETL. So these are the things that I'm thinking about, and I'm asking you that if you've got any ideas, if you can think about any use case going forward with CAP as the foundation, bringing in new data, performing analysis after the data is being extracted and unified. Let me know, get in touch, contact me, and we can talk about that. Otherwise, if you want to try CAP, you can go to analyticcap.com and learn more about it. There's a form you can fill in so that we can get in touch and talk about it. If you want to play around with the open source solutions, which are, of course, you can use them to back up data or backfill data if you're comfortable with kind of development and scripts. These are for you. And if you have any questions, you can contact us with cap@siavak.com. That's it. And thank you very much.